Mark Thompson, Ben Banquets, old school. Ben, I don't know what happened with your lighting, but you look delightful, okay?
Well, nothing ever makes me look whiter and paler than old school. So I don't know. I tried to like turn it down. I don't know. I just
it worked.
I look sickly on old school.
But not today.
Because you insist on the diversity and bringing in these smart, clever, funny people of color, it just augments it. So I've tried to do something about it. But now, of course, you just got Mark. I could have just been as white as ever.
Yeah, that's true. It is. It's the white guys tonight. And yeah. I try to increase my white just to make Ben feel better with I've got a white light over here, sort of. But but it's a pleasure to be. I consider this the triad of death, Mankiewicz, Yeager, and Thompson. To be honest, so it's it's nice to complete the set.
It is. I don't know that there's any death involved in 222 on that, but overall, I like triad. It makes us sound badass.
Yeah.
Makes any group of 3 people sound badass.
Maybe I should have said triad of virtue. Triad of virtue. Triad of power.
So if you want to go, Mark, let's be honest. If you're going to go badass, you don't go triad of virtue.
You're right. Yeah,
anything that ends in virtue is not badass. It's virtuous, but it's not badass. So let me bounce an idea off you guys. And I came to my own decision here. And it's just, and it's a reminder to the people who get so upset at change and the things we can't do. Obviously, there's some frustration with, jokes you can't make or things you can't say anymore. But like, it's gonna be okay, right? Like I have to do a thing tomorrow night where I introduce somebody, a person I like a lot. I was rather honored to be chosen to present him with this award. I'm really just gonna intro a highlight reel of his career and then say, please welcome to the stage. And he's a movie producer. And I was, I do a little joke about how I don't know what a producer, when I got here to Hollywood, I don't know what a producer does. I didn't know what a producer does. And now 20 some odd years later, I don't know what a producer does, right? So a very standard joke, but it'll get a couple of laughs there. And then I point out that like what I have learned is that producers, if there's a great movie, you had a great producer. That's just true. If a movie succeeded, it succeeded in a large part because there was someone behind the scenes, at a bare minimum, letting the artists art, right? Letting the director do the things that he does, and hiring the right people, all the things. So, and I was like listing, so I'm like, no Casablanca without Hal Wallace, no Best Years of Our Lives without Sam Gold, and so I'm listing that. And then I was gonna do a Harvey Weinstein joke, right? And then stop myself, like list a couple of his movies and then be like, you wouldn't have Shakespeare in Love with, never mind. And I thought, wait, can I do that? And then I was like, I don't think I can. So I just didn't. It's fine, right? It's fine, right? It's no big deal.
Yeah, that would have been fine. It would have been fine.
It might have been, but it's okay if it isn't, and I don't care enough to. It's not even
right. You don't want to. You want to stay off it anyway.
Yeah,
right.
so I wrote something else.
Why take the chance? Yeah.
Yeah, but I just mean like there are actual victims in this industry who were hurt by him because he's such a monster, and enough.
You know what?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Go ahead.
Ben, in an homage to your story, in the middle of your story, I thought about doing an Alec Baldwin joke and I pulled it back. And you know what? We're fine. We're fine. Everything's totally fine. So now, but of course you're gonna get me started on that, right? So look, unsurprisingly, I think that we'll probably have agreement here because, but let's see, maybe not. So on Dave Chappelle. Here's my stance. I listened to it and I was hoping that it was funny so that we could say, look, maybe it's the wrong thing, but at least, it was funny. And then, he took a risk and blah, blah, blah. I don't know that I don't know. I guess I was rooting for that, but I'm not even positive. But mainly I just want to say, okay, what is it? What did he do this time, right? And so I watched it and I was like, damn it, that wasn't funny at all. Like that was just, I'm brave, because I'm making fun of trans people. Like first, not at all brave. It's like the most cliched, like fake bravery you've ever seen. it's got Bill Maher written all over it. If Joe Rogan's doing it, I don't know that you're really that brave. And it reminds me of the old / current Muslim bashing days, where I'm so brave. I was the one guy who called out Muslims. Were you? Or were you part of the hundreds and
right?
Hundreds
I mean, you mentioned Bill Maher. The bravery of Bill Maher was not in. Of course, there was no praise in it, but was in commenting on the courage that it took, right, to do that. Right? I wouldn't have done that, but he did. That was brave. He wasn't mocking Muslims. In fact, he wasn't saying. He was merely saying something that was, I thought, rather thought-provoking, right?
Oh, the 9/11 joke, the one that got him from fired from ABC. See, that's exactly what I'm talking about, Ben. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah, that joke was brave at that time, and it was arguably a joke about Muslims. But I thought they were nuts to fire him, and I 100% supported Bill Maher. Later on HBO, for several decades, as he continued to bash Muslims one after another, it became less brave, and it was less interesting, right? And so, but the reason I had that whole long setup is because I refuse to be in the camp of either you hate Dave Chappelle or you love Dave Chappelle. I'm in the camp of, I think Dave Chappelle is one of the funniest guys I've ever seen on television, and I hated this joke or this non-joke, but that doesn't mean I hate him. That doesn't mean I think he should be fired, and it also doesn't mean that I think, well, since I don't hate him, that means I have to love this joke. No, I can just hate the joke and still say, hey, you know what? He was funny, and I think he made a mistake here. Is that allowed?
No. It's a binary world, Cenk. Yeah, it's allowed. But I haven't.
But it feels not allowed, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it depends on what we mean. I mean, not allowed by whom, right? I mean, I don't even know who the people are who aren't allowing it, right? I mean, the conservatives want us to believe that it's, I don't know, big tech, big government, everybody's not allowing. Crazy libs, who the communists, right? Really, I mean, what's amazing is that our former friend, again, just groups everybody with Marxists. They're no Marxists, man. They're no Marxists. It'd be fun if there were some Marxists, right, in our political.
Well, but the funny thing is, Ben, there finally are some Marxists because the left has grown big and strong enough for there to be some Marxists, and it turns out they're not that fun.
Right. I just meant if there were like some these people. I don't know who the Marxists are. I don't really believe that there are. I'm just saying there's nobody in a position of any power in the United States who's a Marxist at all.
And if there were, they'd instantly give their power away.
Yeah, totally right. So they'd.
What I wish there was, just on that point, is I just really wish that there was not the radioactivity that is placed upon socialism by stamping it Marxism and communism, particularly. You know what I mean? It is very, very different. And when there are, obviously, and you've been through this ad nauseum, socialist aspects and socialist programs that exist in America. But beyond that, there are socialist governments that exist in the civilized world, and they're perfectly fine. So the notion of somehow socialism got and I'm not a socialist, but it's insane to me how the rhetoric of this jihad against communism had sucked up socialism along the way.
Yeah, well, that's what and of course, he doesn't know what he's doing, but that's the intent, right? Is that we just group Marxism, communism, socialism together. You say Marxism, and they think that covers all of it. Yeah, of course. I mean, and only because that framing has taken hold are we able to have repeatedly in the mainstream media classifying Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, even though their beliefs are not the same as moderates.
Oh yeah, right? That's the biggest. That is a whole.
So if there were actual socialists in a position of power, democratic socialists in a position of power, then we would sort of recognize where Joe Manchin was politically, which is pretty conservative. Not as conservative as Mitch McConnell, but pretty conservative. So we can't.
Well, so serious point that is serious enough that it's almost annoying, and I just want to say it and get past it, and is the whole spectrum when you're talking about the national politicians is wrong anyway. It isn't left versus right. And you have to separate out social issues and economic issues, because on social issues, Democrats don't do much, but they're generally correct. And on economic issues, there is no difference. It's not conservative versus progressive. Manchin and McConnell almost completely agree. It's corporate versus non-corporate. Okay, so now getting rid of that.
I don't disagree with that. So just so I didn't watch the Chappelle part, and I'm not a fan like you are, but only because I didn't watch as much. Whenever I did watch the show, I would think, oh, that guy's brilliant. Right, I mean, it's just, you couldn't not think that. But then for whatever reason, I wasn't a religious watcher, and so when he had a new special, I didn't check it out as much. But I got it. I never thought, boy, that guy's overrated. I just thought, at some point I got to get into that because it's clear that it's pretty special. So I was just, to me, and again, I don't know what I don't know what the joke was, but it seemed pointlessly, it seemed unfunny. Based on the reaction to it and based on what I read. I did read it. It's weird that he just keeps going back. So to me, what I became interested in is his psychology. Like that notion of don't tell him what he can do because what he can't do. If you tell him what he can't do, he's gonna do it. Even it would appear to his own detriment. And that's just because that exists on some level. Maybe in all of us on some level, and in some of us to a occasionally destructive level. I was like, wow, this seems like a therapy issue for him more than. Well, let me point out this: the therapy issue is what interested me about it. But
yeah, well, so my thought on that is that now all the comics and speaking of political correctness, it's hilarious because the comics will be like, "Oh, we hate political correctness, fascism plus Marxism." Okay, and then you're like, you call them a comic, they're like, "Comics are cartoons, we're comedians," or vice versa. I forget which one. So I don't mean to offend the comics / comedians, but by saying both, I've now guaranteed that I've offended you. But I'll be like Dave Chappelle. Oh yeah,
I don't.
If you complain about it, I'm going to do it again.
I don't think there is a funny comedian who could possibly be offended by that. Inconceivable. There might be some unfunny ones who are, but if that really bothers you, then I mean, Mark, you know a lot of comedians. Any of them be like, "Hey man, I'm a comedian, not a comic, pal."
Yeah, no, I haven't. No one's pulled a yellow flag out and walked off 15 yards on that one. I don't think the labeling particularly matters. I should say for the record, because I don't want to seem sort of like tacitly approving of any position. I didn't see what he said. I started watching the special the other night, got about 10 minutes in, and just got too late. I had to turn it off. I'm gonna get to. I love Chappelle. I went to his live show. It was one of the first shows where I'd ever seen, and I think it was one of the first shows, big shows, and it was at the Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas, where you had to take your cell phone and surrender it to this bag, to this pouch. And they were really strict about the threat anyway, that if you videoed anything, and I completely understood that from a comic standpoint, from an intellectual property standpoint.
Comedian,
yes, comedian. That was you can ruin a whole act that way by doing what happens often at music shows, which is that they go up on Instagram stories or whatever, and now a bunch of the comics act. Anyway, so I love Chappelle. That said, some of his stuff will land, some of his stuff may not land. I haven't seen this stuff that is so controversial. I haven't seen it, but you're saying, Cenk, you saw it and it was sort of meh.
But Mark, don't you think it's strange that doubling down on something that people, unless you're gonna you gotta knock it out of the park, and of course you can make a trans joke, right? But it really can't be can't end with they're weird and different, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that can't be the joke. Not because that's immoral. It's just because it's on its face, not clever.
Well, again, I will say this. I mean, I don't know. I have a real bias against making fun of minorities if you're not in the minority. In other words, if I really just think I'm not into it. I don't want to hear, a non-Jewish person tell a Jewish joke. I don't want to hear well, you can do the rest of the minorities.
No, go ahead, you do it.
I thought, how many is he gonna do? That's what I was thinking.
Hey, Mark, I'm curious. Can a non-Sikh make a Sikh joke?
Yeah, absolutely not, Ben. And I'm glad you brought that up because that's an underrepresented group of comics. All right. So I'm just not about it. So if you're trans and you want to do a trans joke, then go for it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think there's a finger pointing aspect to it. I don't mean to be that guy, but sorry, just generally not cool with it.
And my point is that your joke, if you're going to make a trans joke, the butt of the joke can't be the trans person.
That's absolutely right. That's right.
Your experience, your stupidity with it, your confusion about it, right? Whatever, right?
Right. That's exactly right.
And that makes it a challenge and clever, and that's what separates really gifted comedians from not gifted ones. Although no one can deny that Chappelle has a gift.
Yeah, well, so that's true, but I'm going to do a caveat on that. But first, the Mark Thompson corollary. So I hear what you're saying, Mark, about the no one who isn't Tamil can't make a Tamil joke, but that one doesn't qualify, right? That one doesn't qualify. But mine is broader. If it's in the family, it's totally okay. If it's not in the family, then it's not okay. And so
I don't know what that means if it's in the family.
Yeah, so let me explain. And I get that it's way more subjective. And by the way, none of these rules are actually real. Okay, nobody's gonna enforce any.
Okay, I'll put my pen down. Sorry,
right?
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're like, oh wait, hold on now, wait a minute, we got a rule here. No, in the family means like you're joking around among friends, people you support, allies, right? So, and it depends on the context. Like, so if we're in your living room, I think I can make a Jewish joke and you can make a Muslim joke, okay? Now, when we're on air, these days it gets dicey, right? In the old days, we trusted one another and we didn't have these monsters of the right wing going around going, ha 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 ha, right? But if I was positive that Chappelle, but to broaden it out, if I was positive that Chappelle obviously is in favor of trans people and them having 100% of the same rights and not mocking them, etc., and he makes a trans joke, then I'm totally cool with it, right? But if Rush Limbaugh makes a trans joke, I'm not cool with it. And the right wingers would say, oh, no, well, you're just trying to say liberals can do it, but conservatives can. No, Rush, rest his soul. Anyway, used to hate all those people. Then that puts a different context and connotation on it. Then you're making fun of them instead of everybody who's in the family ribbing each other and having fun.
To a point, I think you're right. I think that the strict, unwavering lines that might be associated with this, as we kind of began this conversation, are not right. So in the case of the stuff I'm talking about, you're right. I think that in the family, as you say, or with a history of support of civil rights and all the rest of it, to a very limited point, I'd be okay with it. But now to Ben's thing. But if it's at the expense of a trans person in the case of Chappelle, again, I haven't seen the bit. I will. I didn't know it was going to be on the test. But I think I don't think I'm going to be cool with it. To be honest, I don't think I am.
Yeah,
I just think it's just not going to wash for me.
Yeah, no, I watched it. I'll speak for you guys. You're not going to be cool with it. So look, so finally on this, look. I think the comics now are in if you will, a genitalia measuring contest. Okay, they're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be braver than you. I'm gonna say something even more offensive about trans people. Yeah, but again, it's not brave. Almost every comic has done it, and then Dave, as if I know him. Chappelle's joke wasn't even a joke. He was just like, hey, trans people don't make sense because gender is a fact. Like, A, that's not remotely true. B, that's not remotely a joke. C, you sound like Ben Shapiro, and that is definitely not funny. So, and it's so obvious he's doing it because it got the previous trans jokes got under his skin, the reaction, and he's doubling down. And then now today he came out quadrupling down, right? And so to me, and the whole reason I brought this up was not because of the joke and the controversy, et cetera. I'm kind of amazed. It turns out, I think a lot of these celebrities have never actually gotten like hate. So, and the reason I live online, right? So I think it's definitely literal, millions of hate comments against me, okay? If it's not millions, it's hundreds of thousands. We're at 987,000 or whatever, right? And so to me, a hate comment is like the most normal thing in the world, right? But I think that Dave Chappelle, I think he doesn't have a Twitter account, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody told me this, right? And if I'm getting any of this wrong, who cares? But I think they live in their isolated bubble where everybody's constantly kissing their ass. So the minute they got pushback, I think all of that, it's not just to put it on Chappelle, all of them were like, what? Yeah. Someone disagrees? It's maybe the first reaction I had when a troll, the first troll appeared in 2007 online.
Well, a couple of things. One, you've gotten so many comments as part of your persona. It's part of your trade, right? That you give and give back, and that you're a tough guy who doesn't care.
Goddamn right.
Right, and it's true. You don't care, and most of it amuses you, right? I'm sure there are some things that people could say, especially. There are probably things, thankfully, that people don't know that would actually hurt your feelings, right? But it is hard to do. It's hard to do. So I retweeted yesterday this really talented, I suspect Mark might follow her, Maura Quint at Behind Your Back. Yeah. So she's a bit of an activist and a bit of a comedian and smart and funny. And I've never met her, but I follow each other on Twitter. And she wrote yesterday, just want a Halloween costume as unforgettable as a lone criticism in a sea of kind words. And like, oh man, I was like, oh, that's so good, right? I mean, we can get, oh my God, I love your work, you're fantastic, you're the best, you're amazing, like 170 times, oh my God, it's great. And then we get, hey, you got this job because of your family, and you suck. And I'm like, oh, right? And I'm paralyzed for days, and like, so, and I'm like, and somebody will say like, hey man, there's like 375 comments about how great you are. And you're like, yeah, whatever, dude, right? So man, there's
Ben, you're describing a dream scenario for me. Are you kidding me? 374 positive, 1 negative? I'd never stop talking about it. I'd smile ear to ear the rest of my life if it just happened one day.
Yeah, but it's something about humans, right? That, I mean, it's it's why when I got my first cell phone driving across the country, the first random call I made, first call not to a person I knew, was that I've told the story so many times, Cenk, you know it, 1-800 how's my driving, whatever it is, right? And I'm on the highway driving to California, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna call and tell him, that the truck driver, and they're like, hey, I just want to talk about the driving thing on your truck. I'm behind it. And they're like, oh, what's the problem? I go, no problem. He's driving at a safe speed, and there was a lane change, and he really he put the blinker on ahead of time and eased over, and it's a big truck, so I was just impressed. Complete silence. Okay, yeah, great.
That's terrific. I didn't hear that.
Relay it. So because it's who calls TV stations. It's you call when you're mad, right? The negative it works in politics, right? I mean, it's why negative politics works because that's what we remember. That has a visceral reaction, whereas overwhelming joy might have some reaction too, but just solid everyday okayness is not a message that sticks.
Well, we talked about this, I think, in the last Old School, or that I was on anyway, where I was saying that, that was an evolutionary thing, that, the negative stays with you more than the positive does for survival reasons. But it is Cenk's superpower that negative stuff does not bother him to the way that it bothers you and bothers me. I mean, and people are truly, as Ben has suggested, they are rageful as they write that negative Yelp review. I mean, they get a great meal at a restaurant. They say I'm going to give you guys a great review. What a great night I've had. Then they get home. Then the ball game's on. Then
right, of course,
the dog has to be walked. And then, but Ben, if they've had a bad meal, they're gonna, as I say, just scorch those keys with every nasty thing they could possibly say. So that stuff has a toxicity, and it just has a frequency about it that is far more able to cut through the noise.
Yeah, so the other day, a conservative had a good line about me, and I almost retweeted it, but he's probably so toxic that I was like, now I'm gonna get like problems with the left when I retweet a critique of me from a right winger. Like, this is the how deep it goes. But it was Mark Dice, although then a lot of people, other people did it too. It was when I was messing around with people talking about how I could kick Joe Rogan's ass, right? And he's like, oh, the only thing you're gonna beat Joe Rogan to is the buffet line. I was like, that's pretty good. So I think he said it better too. I think I ruined his joke, but I was like I was ready to type out pretty good and retweet it, right? But again, I didn't want to blow. Oh, did you know Mark Dice actually was said this Nazi thing? I don't know that he did, but I know I didn't. Otherwise I wouldn't have retweeted it.
There's a buffet.
Yeah, that's right. You got it right.
That's the play.
I do love a buffet, right? That's right.
Yeah. So yeah, I love every time somebody thinks it's new and they're like, yeah, whatever, sink yogurt.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Right. Or chunk yogurt, all this stuff. Me and my kids, we joke around about it. Oh
my God, if I were your kid, I would just call you Chunk. Yeah.
Well, that probably, if you remember, I told a story when I was in elementary school. Big Mac, that was our gym teacher, Mr. McEnany. He had me go on the front of the line, and by the way, a lot of people could be traumatized by this, but I thought it was hilarious. He had me in the front of the line as the whole class would line up, and we would go around going chunka hunka, chunka hunka, chunka hunka. Okay, and then he called me Chunky Hunky, and luckily, the one that stuck out of all that was my nickname. What everybody called me in elementary school was Hunky.
Oh, yeah, come on.
And every time I was thinking, yes, thank God it wasn't Chunky.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And now I can take anything, but when you're a fifth grader, Chunky would not have been a great nickname.
I'd like to bring Hunky back myself for you if I could.
Maybe Hunky's pretty good. I mean, that's a pretty,
strong.
Yeah.
I was very skinny in high school, and I somehow developed it didn't last long, but most of, I would say, second, third grade. And part of it was because I could catch things, I caught everything, but I was known as Wire Arms Willie. I was not into it. First of all, I didn't understand the Willie part. I mean, I got it. I started with
don't get
Wire Arms Willie. That was sort of the, and I was like, yeah, my arms are very skinny. Thank you. I don't like it.
No, you didn't like it at all. Let's be honest.
I didn't like it. Yeah. But I never would have given anybody any satisfaction of ever letting them know.
Yeah, you know what? That's why you double down. That's why you have wire arms today.
That's right. That's right. Look at my wire arms.
I think the doubling down thing is a really interesting phenomenon that you talk about, and probably that social media component is part of it. There's also a quality of sort of being the rebel comedian who will say those things that will get the backup of society, and that image is sort of well served by that thing that he does in the case of Chappelle. So again, didn't see it, don't know. I'm a fan, so as I've said, I I think he can be very funny, but not everything lands. But I think the quality that he has as a rebel, that's the thing that probably leads him toward, no, let me tell you, I'm not only not backing off, I'm doing another 10 minutes on this,
Yeah, so. And I think that I'm curious whether, and I just love the psychological component of it. I'm curious what role that played for him, right? This idea of you kept pushing him, so he's just doubling down. And also to some extent, Louis C.K., who's come back with some jokes that would indicate like, no, I'm not gonna listen to you guys. And and I thought Louis gave a really good apology. I know, Cenk, you sort of did too, but other people were like, what a nonsense apology. And I was like, I don't know how you're supposed to apologize.
I've never seen, almost never seen anyone outside of us ever say, oh, that's a good apology. Like 99 out of 100 times, and I can't remember the one, people say, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. Like you could say, I will self-decapitate. I will immolate myself. I'm lighting myself on fire for how sorry I am right now. People are like, not good enough. You should have lit yourself on fire a minute ago.
So there's a show on television, which I know, Cenk, you don't watch. Mark, you probably do. You watching the morning show?
Oh, I hear it's great. I really have to get on it. I know it's on my list.
I don't know that it's great. I don't know. It's not great. It's on.
Okay. Let me get my list. Get me my list.
Yeah, this is my list of things
that are
either
put
terrible.
It on the good list.
Or no, it's on the on TV list. That's just all. That's what it is. It's on the. You could watch it, I guess. So because it has moments where I like. It's got people I like, and it's about television. So you and I, you'll like it, right?
Right.
You've worked morning radio. You've worked morning television. You're a journalist. You get it, television, right? And but. There was a line in the episode I saw last night. I'm behind, so I'm not spoiling anything. It doesn't matter. Where the Jennifer Aniston character apologizes for sort of leading on a colleague who was going to be her co-anchor, but then she quit, and I guess he felt used. She didn't set out to use him, but then when she quit in the spectacular way that she quit, it sort of ended up that he felt used, and. He was explaining that, and she was like, I didn't know what I was going to do. How was I supposed to know 3 weeks later I was going to quit, right? Or whatever, it was going to go the way it went, or she requested someone else in a spur of the moment thing because of massive external pressures and she was like, but I didn't, yes, I am really sorry that hurt you. And this was 9 months later, and this guy's had an opportunity to do a number of own things, but he was like, I could have taken this other job, which he didn't know about. So to me, I felt like you got to take some responsibility for your own situation. But he was really mad at her, and he told her sort of to her face when he saw her again. And then she was like, I am very sorry that it was not my intent, but I get it and I see it and I'm sorry. Yeah, and he goes, yeah, apology not accepted. That's apologies is your way to alleviate your own guilt. Basically walked away. I'm paraphrasing a little. And I was like, F that guy. Right? Like 100%. Like, come on, man. Like what? Okay, then there's no forgiveness, right? Then there is no. Then to your point, there is no apology. That's okay, right? They're all bad. They're all fake. They're all just self-serving. And I guess maybe they are all self-serving, but then it's no more than our friend Charlie Tabish's argument that everything is self-serving. Yeah. Right? You throw yourself on a grenade and you're killed, but you save your friends is because you know that after you do that. It's like, well, I'm supposed to do this. This is the thing I'm supposed to do. This is the thing that makes me a hero. So I do it. And it's an interesting philosophical debate, and he might be right, but there's no way to do anything.
Is that Charlie Tabish's argument that people jump on grenades and save others because they think, well, this is what I should do. I don't even want to do it.
Just that every motivation we have is ultimately selfish.
That's absolute nonsense. I can't disagree with that more intensely than to say.
Next time we're all together, I'm going to make sure we talk. He has to defend himself.
No, you don't need Charlie.
It's indefensible, man. He doesn't need to defend himself.
Cenk shares it.
No, what's hilarious is, it's not. Not only do I agree with Charlie, I'm going to go 180 from Mark and say it's inarguable. Not only is it not indefensible, it's inarguable. So, but please don't let me explain why. It'll lead up 5 minutes about philosophy and psychology. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Ben and Cenk, it's I don't know where Ben stands on this, although you represent.
I don't like the conversation. I don't really agree with it. I might agree with it, but I don't care, and I do not like the conversation in general. I mean, I like the spirited one if it's only funny. If people start getting serious about it, then I'm just going to tune out. So
yeah, that's that. Well, yeah. I like it even if it's just fiery, and I will tell you that Cenk. If it's absurd, it's just a fun conversation to have and to diagram, but it's absurd.
No, there is nothing that isn't selfish. It's literally impossible.
Cenk, you can define things. Sorry to interrupt as you're starting. I won't again, but you can define all things. You can define your way to winning this argument. I get that, but don't you see that you're actually benefiting yourself because you have so much tied up in self-sacrifice? You know what, dude? Just go pound it. That's just defining your way to winning the argument. You're not actually arguing the points anymore.
Okay, so that's half true. I understand what you're saying. I still think it's selfish. One day off air, I'll explain why. Okay. I got into a legendary debate, not fight, but debate with Jack, who is now also a TYT, but a friend of mine from a long time ago. And you guys know him, so you'll know that it's funny because he's normally very calm. He's as calm gets, right? Placid is his middle name. And so, but I got into a huge argument like 20 years ago, at least, when I said having kids is selfish. You're just doing it for yourself. And he's like, what? And so even now, you mentioned that to Jack, and he'd be like, "Come again, do it. Say it again. Say it again."
But I think having kids might be selfish, but the daily work that goes into raising them is not.
No, it's not. So I'll just say this last thing to make the distinction here and to appease Mark, but it doesn't count as an apology, okay? No, seriously. On the other hand, although we're all selfish, they could, in my opinion, but that could show itself in wonderful ways, depending on how you put that out in the world. But the key, and I think what Mark is driving at, and what we all agree with, and that's why we generally agree politically and about life, is empathy. And if that is the delineator, if you have empathy for other human beings, great, that's what you need. That's what we love and need to have, right? The people who are dangerous are the ones who do not have empathy for others. Right. And it is a spectrum. And now this is a kind of a depressing point, but I think that a lot of people on the right wing are on that end of the spectrum, where they think, well, I got empathy for me, I got empathy for my wife, I hope. I got empathy for my kids and my church and my family and the Little League team that I coach. But you're over there, and I don't have any empathy for you. And whereas us, people on the left, we have broader empathy.
I think that's true. I mean, there's an empathy gene, I think, and that's largely to Mark's point, is that this argument about selfishness is ultimately going to boil down to how you define a selfish act, right?
And that's
right. So, it was a tweet from somebody I follow today, where I didn't go back through it, but essentially the conversation was, she wants to wear a mask and wants people to be vaccinated, wear a mask where appropriate and wants people to be vaccinated, and the guy responded, "Hey, why don't you wear a mask and you get vaccinated, and that's your thing? Why do you care what anybody else does?" And she was like, "Well, no, this is bigger than me, and it is a broader community issue, and I care about the people in the community, right? And maybe because then ultimately caring about the people in the community will ultimately make her life easier, if you want to get back to the selfish argument. But again, there is this feeling, this sense of being part of something much bigger, which everybody wants. Everybody, whether you're conservative or liberal or a Marxist, or one of the millions of Marxists in power in the United States of America, or a angry right winger. Everybody wants to be part of something, right? Wants to share something together, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right. Generally speaking, I mean, obviously there's some psychopaths that have no empathy whatsoever. Donald Trump. But I don't think most right wingers fall into that camp. And so that's gonna lead to two quick things. Number one, look, guys, I'm not immunocompromised, but I don't know why this is so hard to understand, because they generally don't want to understand it. It's not hard to understand. We all get it. They're just actively shutting their minds off to it. So I'm vaccinated. It appears by all evidence that if I get coronavirus now, I'm probably going to be fine, right? And so, because I don't want to get into why, it's kind of obvious, et cetera. But I'm not immunocompromised. Colin Powell was. He was vaccinated. He still got coronavirus because the unvaccinated have spread it around so much. He was immunocompromised and he died. So why is that hard to understand? Like, I don't like wearing a mask, but I don't, as bad as Colin Powell was, I didn't want him to die.
I hate it. Hate it, but I do it.
Let me just tell you,
I agree.
Maybe we can do this when we come back. I know the time is winding down, but I got into a mask thing last night, and it really, I went to visit a friend of mine who's a performer, and had he not been the performer that I've been there to visit, it might have really gotten to a super ugly place. But it was with somebody who was representing the management of the place, and I mean, just speaking to when you have drinks or food, you're allowed to take the mask off, right? And I had a martini, and I'm drinking this martini, and I had the mask off, and I'm talking to my friend who's the performer, and my girlfriend is there. And someone, to be fair, I'm gonna tell the story fairly, and I'll tell it quickly, came up to me and said, you need to put the mask back on between sips. So they did tell me that, okay? So I put the mask back on for a second, then I took it off, then I took a sip, and then I didn't put it back on. And then this guy comes over, and it was really the manner that he addressed me that bothered me the most. He said, you need to put your mask on. And I said, well, I'm drinking a martini. He said, your martini is done. And I held it up, and there was like a quarter of the martini still there. He said, are you gonna pour that on me? I said, no. I just want to show you that there's still part of the martini here. He said, well, this is how you do it then. You put on your mask, and when you want a sip of your martini, you take off the mask for a second, you take a sip, and then you put the mask back on. And I said, hey man, there's no need for you to be condescending about it, And he said, well, there's no need for you to stand there for 10 minutes not wearing and it went from there. And then I kind of just backed away because I didn't want, as I say, my friend worked there. But it's to your point, Ben, I hate it. And I might've been looking for the get out of jail free card, which was my drink, Yeah. I was within the law, I wasn't violating the law in any way. But you see how these things.
No, you see why that guy is not helping the good fight.
No,
right. I mean, that guy needs to come up to you and go, hey, I'm sorry. I know I said it before. It's important to me, and I work here at the club, that you sort of keep the mask thing. And I know it's a pain in the ass, but if you could do that, I really appreciate it. And then if you're defiant about that, then it's on you.
Exactly. Actually, that was precisely how I characterized it. I said it was the way he said it. If he had said, "Hey, man, I'm sorry, but this is the rule here. Would you just do me a favor?" It would have worked, and I would have done it.
Yeah. So actually, I want to pick up on that, we're out of time in the next episode, and I want to tell you about this. So I'm wearing this shirt, and then I didn't almost get into a fight. That's an exaggeration, but I want to tell the story in the next episode. I'm wearing this one.
Once again, spelling.
Yeah. All right. So the anti-vaxxer club, and this shirt gets more comments than anything in the world. ShopTYT.com. ShopTYT.com. Okay. But I'll tell you what happened this morning, which I'm slightly blowing out of proportion, but you'll enjoy it. I want to get back to Mark's story, but before we go, all these wonderful people wrote in. I'm gonna just blitzkrieg through these. Don't make any comments, otherwise it'll take too long. Okay, Text Stan says, wow, the top of Mark Thompson's skull exists. Who knew?
Oh, right, no hat. That's a good point. That's why you look different. That's right. That's right.
And I couldn't find the hat. I'll find it.
Felicia says, great old school today with Ben and Mark talking with Cenk. Cenk, Mark, and Ben always have informative conversations. Why, thank you, we appreciate that. Mark Harris signed up on YouTube, and John Crump is a new member and upgraded membership to TYT Premium. You guys are awesome. You do that by hitting the join button below, and you can get the next episode for that. Lady Luck wrote in on Super Chat, member for almost a year, watching for over 2. Yet somehow my first time watching old school, very hyped for this. Also, hi, Cenk. Also, hi, Lady Luck. Hopefully you're enjoying it. And then wonderful people on Twitch. I don't have time for all of this except for Ash Manuel. Wish I found TYT many years ago instead of at the start of the pandemic, which I'm glad for. It's okay, you're here now. We love you. Lady Wolf 69, Dave Schmidt 311, who's been so wonderfully generous and did it again in gifting subs today, and Trev Tennessee. Thank you guys, we love you. Everybody head over to the extra episode, and I still have to come back to the word socialist. There's so many more fun things to talk about, like socialism. TYT.com/join. We'll see you over there.